Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the I Am One Two podcast with your host, Christopher Cohn. With me is the man with the plan. Don't put him in a can. Dan the Man. Say hello to everybody, Dan.
Hello, everyone. I'll tell just a real fast story. My little company, my self-employment thing is called DTM Woodwork, and people will ask me what where'd that come from, and it's pretty clear. And some people will guess it right. It is simply Dan the Man Woodworking, DTM Woodwork. It's a fun little thing to get to carry around with me.
And I still have that meme you sent me that says, contrary to popular opinion, only 99% of people who claim to be Dan the Man are actually Dan the Man.
Yeah.
I like that. So welcome to the podcast. We're glad you're here with us today. We're going to try and give you some food for thought today, guys. I'm going to stretch you a little bit. So put on your thinking caps and get calm and get centered and try to get as much out of this as you can, because this is a topic I think we should be talking much, much more about, and I don't know why we've lost that art. It doesn't seem to be happening nowadays, but we're going to be talking about your soul and your destiny and why are you here, and these deep questions that I was consumed with as a young person, and then you just lose track of them as you get older and you get busy with your life, and you're so busy paying bills and going to work and take care of your family that you don't really sit around and think about what's it all about and what's my meaning, what's my purpose. And that's the grist of life. That's what it's all about. And you can miss it. And then all of a sudden it's time to die, and I didn't get accomplished what I needed to accomplish while I was here. So you better get in touch with your soul, your essence, your spirit, whatever you choose to call it. So we're going to try to do that today. You have to bear with me because it's going to be a little bit more, I don't know, brainiac stuff. I don't know what to call it. So it's going to stretch me too, but we'll get into it and help you out. And if you're just tapping on this podcast, again, this is a recovery-based podcast, recovering from what this life, this world, craziness, the people in it, so that I don't lose track of what myself, my soul, my essence is, and I can align my life and my actions with my truth so that I can reach my highest goals and aspirations in this life. And that is recovery, and I teach that to every single one of my patients who come to my group, and they think they're coming there just to get out of trouble at work, or to get the cord off their back, or to get the wife, let them back in the big bed. But it's like, no, we're here. You're at a crossroads of your life. Your decision you make here is going to determine something really awful or something really great. So this is about your life, your destiny, and why you're here on this planet. So I have a question to start us off, and I don't know if I'll title the podcast this. It won't probably fit on the placard. Mm-hmm. But I have a question for everybody to ponder for a second. Is it too late for us to reclaim the human soul? Or have we completely lost it? Have we lost so much track of what's really important in life and who we are as a species as we've adopted technology, as we've allowed this modern world to program us with all of its priorities, like I got to run to check the cell phone and answer that email and all that stuff that we did not have to do 20, 30, 40 years ago? Is it too late, or has the soul already been extinguished? I don't know. I mean, it's a question I'm honestly asking, because I don't think I'm alone. Maybe I do think addicts and alcoholics are a little bit more obsessed with these deeper questions of life, because I have a joke I tell in the group, and most of my patients agree and laugh at it. But, I was the guy as a kid that, like, why are we here? And what's it all mean? And, I don't know what my purpose is. And is there a God? Is there an afterlife? What happens when we die? And meanwhile, everybody else is looking at me going, dude, we're at the football game. We're just trying to watch the play. Will you shut up? But especially everybody out there, when you go through your teenage years and maybe you get introduced to marijuana or some mushrooms, psychedelics, or you go to college, you do get into these deeper questions. I was very fortunate to have some kick-ass philosophy classes at the University of Minnesota that really challenged what is reality and what do we accept as real and all that good stuff before quantum physics. This is back in the 80s. And so this is before quantum physics was really in our face telling us we don't know what reality is. So again, what is the soul? So we'll start with that. We'll start from a baseline. So I did look up the definition. And the best one I found, because I like this one word in here, it says the soul is the spiritual or immaterial part of a human being. It's regarded as immortal. So immaterial means not of the material world. It means it's separate, it's different. And I like that because, It means it's something we can't get our grimy little hands on and ruin it. We can't sell it in the marketplace. It's immaterial. You can't do that. You can't grab it and force it into a box, right? And I also like to regard it as immortal, that it goes on, that it continues forward and it doesn't end with death. That's the human soul. Now, my friend Dan over there was having a conversation with somebody. This is probably about a year or two ago, and they were saying some resistance to this word about having a soul because they were associating it with religion. And that's programming, guys. If you associate anything automatically and you start rejecting before you listen and allow to consider it, that means you've been programmed with a bias. Okay, any scientist would tell you that. A bias is preventing you from seeing new evidence because you're already saying, no, I don't agree with that. But Dan was very shrewd, as Dan can be sometimes, and he said to the guy, okay, but what about a spirit? Or not even a spirit. What about an essence? Do you believe there's a self, a you underneath all that? And the guy went, oh, yeah, I certainly. I mean, like he agreed immediately, but he just resisted that word, soul. So we kind of picked up on that in our 12-step recovery program that we opened up for everybody here in Louisville, but we're going to be carrying it to the nation with the book coming out later this year, I Am One Too, so that the steps can be done by anybody. We said that your spirit, your essence, your soul, or yourself. It's your inner being that almost everybody can feel there's something there, and it's your inner sense of self in relation to the exterior world, right? You're having experience of the exterior world, you're having feelings, stimuli, you're having taste, touch, sensations, but something inside of you is receiving that. And that's your inner sense of self, soul, spirit, or essence. So get on the same page with that. So that leads to those self-searching questions that I mentioned before, that I don't know if you spend time pondering these things. I do. That's what meditation is great for. Sometimes with intentional meditation, you actually start with a question. Your teacher will give you a question to ponder during your meditation, and you go off and you ponder on it and let things come to you, and you can come out with some real enlightenment to share later with the class. But questions such as these that I think are so vital that we should be teaching our children and we should be doing on the regular ourselves. Like, what is my purpose? What am I here for? What gives my personal existence meaning? What fills me up and makes me feel like it's worthwhile to be here and that I'm accomplishing something with my life? What motivates me to get out of bed in the morning and to keep forward through the storms, to not lose hope, to not give up and just say, I'm just going to be another brainless, drug-using, food-eating, consuming American. Sorry. But to have a deeper, meaningful life, right? What am I alive for? Why am I on this planet? Is there really such a thing as a blueprint to my soul, as some teachers say, that I'm supposed to be working on certain issues? Is there an afterlife that leads after this? There's a reason to work on things because it matters in the long term. Is there a point to your walk here on earth? And the one that I think is most important that Americans are not taught to meditate on, and that is, what will be my legacy? And I will present this to my patients many times and say, well, what would you be remembered for today? If you had died of an overdose instead of coming back from the dead like God did for you in that hospital before you came to see me in this hospital here, what would they have said about you at your funeral? Well, he really liked his beer. Yeah, the guy really chased his heroin. What's your legacy that you're leaving behind, man? Is it misery? Is it pain? You know, there's a lot of people. I see, when I listen to teachers, I take an aggregate, kind of like the group conscience. I will listen to all voices and say, okay, I'm hearing this one a lot, and so there might be something to it that's true, even if we can't prove it. And a lot of my teachers, including some near-death people I've been listening to lately, sharing their experiences on a podcast, having near-death experiences, talking about that they have their life review. They use different words for it, but that's the word my teacher would say. You have a life review where you have to feel and experience everything you ever made anyone else feel. And why? It's not punishment. People disregard that and think, well, it's purgatory right before hell, right? No, it's not. It's actually to enlighten you that your actions mattered and that you had an impact for good or for bad. And then that becomes your legacy. Was it for mostly good or was it for mostly bad? And of course, everybody wants to think it's going to be mostly good, man. I did all these great things, It's like, well, really? So this is what we don't do as Americans, but Buddhists do it on the regular. And I was taught this from my time to be able to spend with the Dalai Lama and those great spiritual beings, that the Buddhists will meditate on their death every day. It's called impermanence. It's a philosophy. It's a principle. It's a tool that they use every day in their meditation to remember this ride doesn't go on forever. I do not want to waste my time today. I don't want to let this one day go by and just piss it away. I want to make it have meaning and intention, and I want to enjoy it and smell the roses, as we would say here in America. So impermanence, what do I need to get busy doing today that's most important to me that I'm not doing and I'm slacking on before it's too late? Now, many people might consider that to be morbid, to dwell on your death, but it's the exact opposite in Buddhist tradition. It makes them more self-aware of their choices during the day, that the hourglass is running out, I had a very good friend of mine named Brother Luke, who's a monk in the Trappist order down in Bardstown, Kentucky. And I asked him about, this is kind of a sidebar, but it fits. He goes, Christopher, just because I'm in this monastery all the time, don't think it's all heaven on earth and all that. We still got personalities and we got politics and we got all other stuff. And, what are you going to do? You can't get away from that. And I said, all right, well, tell me, Luke. So I said to him, what do you do? And he goes, well, I realized when I turned 50, the hourglass had turned over and I'm on the other side of the clock. So I'm very careful what I give my time and energy to. And I was like, huh. And that image of an hourglass going, that's everybody. That's you. That's me. That's Dan. We all got that clock going. I don't know if it's tomorrow. We don't know. But that clock's running out. So meditating on your impermanence. There's another great philosophy with Buddhists with the mandala, when they make these sand mandalas that take days to make and they fill up a whole room and they've designed a whole beautiful work of art. And everybody gets to admire it for a few days, and then they wipe it away. I remember this movie I saw in slow motion. The guy was wiping the sand away, and the colors are going, pshh. Impermanence, man. That's us. We are not here permanently. So, again, we're going to consider these questions today on the spirit, the soul, your purpose, your meaning, and this deeper consideration of life that I don't think we're practicing, right? And it can be very valuable in your recovery efforts, all right? So the problem we have today on Earth, and if you're not talking about this, you're probably talking about the stories, right? You're talking about what happened in the news. You're talking about political decisions that you don't agree with. You're talking about rulings of the Supreme Court. So that's part of this. But the bigger picture is there's so many threats to our soul, our human nature, our self today that are changing us as a species at a speed that has never happened before in the history of mankind. Never. You could take a dude who lived in the 1900s, the early turn of the century, and bring him to 2025 and expose him to everything we have with the cell phones and everything, and he would be overwhelmed by, whoa, like, what? How do you deal with this? And that's what we do. We deal with it, but we don't consider what's that costing me in terms of an identity for what the human race is. Is the human race a robot? Is the human race part machine? Is the human race matter? Does it have any lasting legacy? A lot of people say the legacy of the United States will be McDonald's wrappers, especially as they kill funding for the arts more often. They've taken it out of schools. A lot of schools don't have a music program. They've just taken it away. It's not important. That defines our soul. That defines our purpose, our meaning we're going to leave behind. And especially for our children, we're teaching them what's important, what's not important, right? So the people I talk to about this issue, though, a majority of them will come back at me with, well, mankind has always been under threat of something, right? Extinction of some kind. And I get that. But this many? Like literally this many. I've never seen this in my lifetime, and I doubt you have either. Let me give you a short list. The speed at which technology is evolving beyond our control. The emergence of AI and how it's going to take over the workplace and put all of us out of work. The emergence of robotics taking over the workforce. The emergence of bionics and robots taking over our bodies, that we're going to now start to incorporate technology as a part of our being. Like, having a shoulder replacement or hip replacement, that's a little gear in there. But I guarantee the minute they figure out how to put a cell phone in a person's forehead, the first person is going to adopt it without thinking about what that means to their future health. Whether the radio waves will give them radiation and cancer or not, they'll just adopt it. They'll just I want to be the first kid on the block with the Apple in under your skin cell phone, whatever it is, right? Consolidations of power and wealth. We've never experienced this where so much wealth and power is going to so few people, and they have a platform of technology to push agendas that Hitler never had. Okay? I'm not talking about all that fascism, this and that in the news. I'm talking about reality of history. That if Hitler had had the technological reach that we have today with social media and computers, there's probably no question he could have taken over the earth. As I heard somebody who I respect a lot break it down, he said, in wars past, it always comes down to spreading your troops too thin, and then you lose. You try to fight too many fronts, and that's what the Germans did by trying to take on the Russians. And that doesn't work. But if you have technology and drones and robots, sky's the limit. Worsening environmental disasters on the news every night. Places burning down, floods. We just had a flood here in Kentucky. Threat of extinction from climate change. The speed at which our children are being corrupted by technology that Dan was talking about in a previous podcast, of being exposed to things that are inappropriate and making them grow up way too fast. All this is coming at us. And there's a great question that I have for you that someone posed to me. Did any of us get asked if we wanted this? Has anyone asked you if you want AI in your life? I don't. I don't have any need for it. I do not want a smart toaster that's telling me whether or not my bread is ready. I can figure that out on my own. And yet, I know many of you all have probably already adopted. You've got the Nest, you've got the Alexa, you've got Google Assistant on your phone, setting your agenda for the day and dinging you and telling you what the next thing is. I get it if you run a busy life and that helps you, but we asked in another podcast, is that serving you or are you serving it? And what's the cost to your soul? That's the theme I would ask you to ponder after this podcast and going forward. What's the cost to our human soul? When do we stop becoming what we are? We're living animals that are part of the kingdom, the same as your dog or your cat is. We are living animals, but we're being exposed to things that are changing us. The pace at which we operate, the shortness we have with each other, the fear we have of strangers and of each other. And we always think the worst before we think the best because we're listening to the programming. And I listen to other people and I watch the way they act. And I'm like, 100 years ago, maybe they would have invited that guy in for tea and crumpets and gotten to know him and been able to discuss politics without beating the shit out of each other. Today, this guy just pulled out a gun on that guy because he disagreed with his politics. How many viral videos are you feeding your head with that are showing you that? People bashing on each other's windshields and yelling at each other and losing their freaking minds. Again, it's changing us and it's overwhelming us. But I have a question, again, many questions, and as we're pondering these issues, does anybody even care? I don't see it. I don't see anybody who gives a fuck. Not in this country. I'm not saying other countries. They're way healthier than us. But in this country, it seems like money, power, prestige, fame has surpassed anything that has scruples, meanings, values, or purpose. Surpassed. I was watching a video the other day on Steve-O from Jackass. Great guy. Great story. He's helped a lot of people with his story. But he was on a daytime talk show. And even the talk show host said, it's a little dicey bringing a guy like this on daytime TV, but he has a good story. He can help people. And he was getting ready to come out. And she said the famous disclaimer that they say before every episode of Jackass, but don't do this at home, kids. You should never do what this guy does. You should never, ever, ever do what this guy does. And then they run a reel, a film, a whole loop of this guy's achievements. This guy's been all over the world. He's made millions of dollars. He's got best-selling books. He's got a podcast. He's got this and that. He's the most amazing guy on earth because he does these things. And then they brought him out. Steve-O! What's that telling our kids? Fuck that. I'm doing that stuff. Look what they got that guy. And how many of them are growing up without those scruples. You know, there's studies. I pay attention to studies a lot because I love information coming out saying that college students don't feel it's cheating to use AI or to cut corners. As long as they get their degree, they don't even care. They don't care about learning. It's all about the achievement and getting that little resume credit to get a bigger paycheck and stuff. And again, this is our future and it's changing us. And do we even care? I'm just asking, do you care? Now, I know a lot of us go, well, I mean, it's too big, man. It's overwhelming. I don't know what I could do. What can I do? So I just, what can I do? Well, guess what? There's a lot. And I'm going to help you with that. There's a lot of things you can be doing right now to reclaim your soul and then possibly touch another person to reclaim theirs. Because we're doing that every day in this 12-step damn program. And I believe that it was given to us to help save us. I do believe that. I'll explain a little bit more in a minute here. But again, when was the last time you sat around and talked about these issues with it not being politically tinged, right? Without it being an argument because he said this, the red tie said that, the blue tie said, but just having a discussion heart to heart. Where are we going as a species? Where are we going as a people? And what's coming? According to the experts, by 2035, most of us are going to be out of work because of automation, if they have their way. That's the speed at which it's developing. It's frightening. But as I said before, this culture of more and greed and just satiate your own dopamine pleasures, and then that's all you need in life. I had another question posed by somebody. Again, I do have some people that are willing to hang with me and discuss. And he says, what does it say about us as a species that the people we elect into the highest offices to make the laws and to control us are sociopaths? People that don't seem to have any empathy or care for people who are less than, or people that they don't agree with, or people that aren't in the right camp with whatever belief, That's not a leader. And it's, again, somebody that doesn't care. I don't want somebody who doesn't care in charge of the buttons and in charge of my destiny. But we'll elect that because we get caught up in the programming and say, well, choose this side or choose that side. And both sides are dirty, and both sides don't have your best interest at heart. And you really think it's going to be any different? It never is. But we go through this little dance. And how is that changing us? I don't know. So there was a movie called My Dinner with Andre that I saw back in the 80s. And it is an art film, and it takes a lot of... and I'm not so sure most people today could watch it because it's a conversation between two old friends over dinner. And one of the friends has gone off into the world and had all these adventures. And his other friend's been back in New York, and he's been hearing all these crazy stories about his friends gone fringe, his friends doing all this weird stuff. And so he doesn't know what he's going to greet for dinner. He thinks he's going to see this freak, and he doesn't even want to go to the dinner because he's kind of dreading the whole thing. And by the time he comes out the end of the conversation at the end of the dinner, his life changes. Like literally is a life-changing conversation about what I'm talking about meaning and life and purpose. And this guy's sharing his adventures of what he's been doing out there in the world, pressing the limits and finding his meaning and purpose. And there's a line in there, though, that Andre, who's the guy that's been traveling, says to Wally. And he says, one of my fears, he said, and it's a genuine fear and a concern that I've been pondering on. He said, what if the 1960s represent the last desperate gasp of the human soul? Now, I encountered a guy today, old school dude, even older than me, and he made some comment in the chat about the 60s was all about war and people didn't respect authority, and I was like, whoa, okay, that's one side of it, but that's not what the 60s were about. The real 60s, now sure, any movement, any change in history, you're going to have extremes, you're going to have lunatics, you're going to have stereotypes, like the peace and love man, that stereotype, smoke weed man. No, man, the 60s at its heart was a human movement of the young people challenging everything their parents had taught them. I mean everything. Like, why do I wear my dad's deodorant? Do I need it if it's killing me with chemicals? Why do I shave? That was the long hair deal. Why do I do this or that? Why do I come home and have a cocktail and drink that poison after work? Why do I work at that factory? It was questioning everything about the status quo. And I don't see that. I don't see that. I mean, I have hopes because I look at history and I'm like, there's this circular pattern of history where it goes this way and then it all comes back around and we have another war or we have another movement and eventually it'll be back. But every generation I've been hoping for ever since then, whether it's Generation X, Generation Y, Generation Z, Generation whatever the fuck, I keep saying, when's this next generation going to pick up the ball and say, this is not working? And because of the power of technology, I feel as if they're being overwhelmed by the cell phone, the gaming, the internet, the social media, to the point that they're not having a chance to develop a revolution or a movement. And so I like that question. What if the 1960s represent the last desperate gasp of our human soul? And in the 80s when he made this film, he had no idea where we'd be in 2025. And in the 60s, neither did they either. And what's really crazy, you want to hear crazy shit? Because I'm part of these people. The baby boomers have failed us. They're a disgrace. They sold out. They were the change everything man generation, then they changed nothing. They sold out. Hope that makes you mad. Maybe you'll get off your ass and do something. I don't know why. Again, I just think it's the influence of all these things changing us that we're not even considering, hey, maybe there's a different way. Maybe I don't have to go down this path. Now, let me switch it to the positive and some tools before I lose you guys. Because we in recovery and with the talk about programming all the time. I talk about it more than others and they roll their eyes, but you can call it conditioning, you can call it training. But one of the greatest gifts of recovery is you get to do this thing called inventory, where you literally get to go through and investigate, do I really believe this, or did someone else give this to me and it's not serving me? Do I want to follow this? Is it a good thing for me and my soul, or can I reject that and set boundaries and go in a different direction? That'd be better for me. It's a tremendous gift called an awakening, which Bill Wilson said himself has recreated this spiritual experience wholesale for anybody that wants it. Like literally the Buddha had to leave his home and go out into Calcutta and see the people starving and dying to be awakened and go, shit, maybe there's a different way. And literally he's saying, all we got to do is these steps for a few months and we change. I've never seen it not work. I've never seen a person not come out the other end and not change choices, decisions, patterns, habits, and what they're doing with their life. That's the result. That was my result, especially when it's done right. Now, if somebody does the steps light or the steps bullshit, they're not going to get the same result. But my result is it's all about what you do after the steps. And for me, when I found my best teachers, I changed my life entirely. I was in the private corporate world. Yes, I had my artistic intentions, but I had essentially sold out to the paycheck. And instead, I took that left turn and went back to get my master's degree and went into social work with everybody warning me, you're not going to make any money. And guess what? You don't. But I'm helping people, and I'm doing more to help people than I ever have in my entire existence. That is the result of an awakening. You change. You stop being the status quo. You don't have to follow the herd. You don't have to be one of the guppies swimming upstream. And so many people out there, I don't think, are considering, as they're exposing themselves to this source of whatever it is, entertainment, social media, politics, that it's changing you, man. It's affecting your inner self, your child inside, who you are. And again, I say that's one of the greatest gifts of recovery, because I can go to my sponsor. One of my sponsees did this to me a long time ago, and I love this story. He was one of my quirkiest sponsees I ever had, and I love him to death. John, if you hear me out there, I love you, bro. We both love the Talking Heads. And we went to a concert with David Byrne, and it was a very swank theater downtown, and you're not supposed to do anything crazy. He slipped in a lamp at that he had set up a bulb with a battery so he could light it. And he danced to this song that's from the movie Stop Making Sense with the Talking Heads, where David Byrne danced with a lamp during one of his songs. And he got away with it. He didn't get kicked out. But anyway, he calls me one day and he goes, Christopher. And I'm like, what? He goes, man, what's going on? And I'm like, what? He goes, what's this weird pressure I begin to feel the minute anyone leaves me a voicemail, a text, or an email? I feel like the clock's ticking. I have to get back to him right away. I said, yeah. What's that like? He says, I don't know if I like it. No, I know, man. Isn't it weird? He says, yeah. Why do I have to get back to him right away? I don't know, man. We're being trained on that. It's being bred in us. Why don't you fight the power? Let it hang. Don't answer it right away. Oh, man, I don't know if I can do that. Well, you can try. That's changing behavior. But what came first? The awareness, the consciousness. That is really the whole point of therapy. We're going to bring all your crap from your subconscious and we're going to put it in front of you. Do you like this? Do you want to continue this way? And that's how people change. But where's that happening in our lives without groups like the 12 Steps? I don't see it. I don't see churches doing that. I'm not saying there's not some out there, but they're few and far between. We have an epidemic of people leaving the mainstream churches in our country. You want to know why that is? Because they're not being fed anymore. That's what churches were originally meant to do with the good news, which is what the gospel means. They were supposed to feed you so that you had some tools and some good shit you could use during the week to come back and have a good week as a person following the tools. Not condemnation and you're going to hell crap. That was not the whole point. It was tools. That's what Jesus gave us, tools. But again, are we even considering that? It doesn't even matter anymore. I don't know. So let me give you some hope before I get Dan in here, and I'll shut up a little bit. I had an old spiritual teacher named Marion, 4'9", 5'4", somewhere in that range, red hair out of a bottle, upper 60s, full of fire, a dynamo, an absolute dynamo of energy. And she used to just all of a sudden break out while she was sharing in class, and she would just say, there are prophets walking the earth right this minute. And she would just say that, and we'd be like, what? And then we'd wait for her to answer, and she would say, you think God would desert us? Do you think prophets only existed in the Bible in the old times? Do you think your higher power would ever just leave us abandoned and let us destroy ourselves? It seems like it, right? Doesn't it seem like that's where we're headed? Destroying ourselves? However, Dan encounters these little pockets all the time on his podcast and in his world as a handyman of people doing good things to change the world and help other people. And we have a center for all that in the 12-step program. And it's very interesting that when the 12 steps came along in the 1930s, many people who look back on that monumental shift in American history and Western culture call Bill Wilson the Western Buddha. That he was bringing all these principles that the Eastern religions, and sometimes it takes years to develop these things, and you have to practice at it, and they do from birth. They teach their kids meditation. They meditate at school. They do these things every day. They learn that stuff. But he found it wholesale, which is what Americans needed. We're never going to settle for taking years. We want it now in the West, right? And it's my firm belief, as I've watched this spread of the 12 steps, go from first AA, and then the first drug addict showed up. And they go, what do we do? He's going to ruin it. And they said, well, Jesus wouldn't kick him out. So we got to help this guy. So they helped him start NA, Narcotics Anonymous. And then Lois started Al-Anon for the friends and family. And then we had Overeaters Anonymous and Sex Addicts Anonymous and Gamblers Anonymous. And this program has spread like wildfire between 1935 and 2025, guys. That's 90 years. Faster than Christianity. Of course, they didn't have technology, but AA does not use technology. They are anonymous. They don't spread the word in commercials. And it works. That's why it's spread. It works to change people's lives. And it's my firm belief that the last bastion of people to help is you, the average person out there that doesn't know anything about these things. I didn't know about the 12 steps or these tools before I came to the program. And I believe it's higher power's intention that this is our chance to help save ourselves before we go over the cliff. Because I'm going to tell you what I've seen. I have not seen anybody do this experiment called the 12 steps and not be changed afterwards, where they were more compassionate, more empathetic, more kind to their fellow man afterwards. And Dan will tell you the same. It's the exact same result for every person when they get the true awakening. They change. And as they change, they get a conscience back. And as they're doing bad things that they know are destructive or hurting anybody else, their conscience goes, ooh, shit, I shouldn't be doing that as a member of the program. I shouldn't be doing that as a good guy. And I do the 12 steps, man. I don't do that. I don't hurt people. And that wasn't there before. And that is what's going to keep us from going over the cliff and helping people to make better choices. Otherwise, it seems like we're voting for our own destruction right now. I just saw that the legislatures at the top office decided to eliminate some environmental stopgaps to protect certain species in the name of business, as usual. It's all about money. So if more species die of animals, it doesn't matter. It's just, I don't know, folks. It can seem despairing, but I will tell you that this 12-step work and going and working on yourself, if you don't have access to a 12-step program, but you do, every town has tons of 12-step meetings, and they're on Zoom, where literally you can just go check them out. It's no investment. Keep your screen off. Nobody knows who you are. Just listen. There's even international meetings where you can go and hear people in other countries share their stories. Or therapy. Therapy is a great place to start. What's happening with my life? Am I happy? Is it satisfying me? Is it fulfilling me? What do I want to change? What do I need to change? And where do I want to go? Get our friend Dan in here to talk a little bit about this topic. Again, it's a deep topic. I just want to throw something out a little bit different today. Maybe you think it's crap, and maybe that's the attitude of our whole damn world right now, that we don't even care. But I know we do. I actually do know that we do. So I'm not going to give up hope for the human race, and that's the only reason I'm writing this damn book, because I'm going to do my part to make sure people have these tools when I'm dead. I'm not going to die without them having this book. I can tell you that much. I'm going to make sure it happens. Stay tuned. All right, Dan, what are your thoughts that you wrote down? So
I will be honest about the fact that this is scary stuff. It's hard to reconcile. It's hard to think about, because it's a lot easier just to turn my head and don't pay any attention to it. Obviously, that does no good. And everything you say makes great points, man. This is totally off board, but when you talked about the hourglass, our friend Ross just bought Toby. Ross is famous for buying gifts for people's birthdays that are unique. And he bought Toby a big, giant hourglass, man. And that does make you think, you turn that thing over and you watch those sands fall down through there. What was the old... As sands through the hourglass, so is the days of our lives, and it's real. There's, how much is ramped up on us, like you said, just over these past, not a whole lot of years, that there's too much. We talk about like everything that you have to do in a day. A normal human, everything I'm responsible for doing in one day is overwhelming in itself. And that's just to get myself up and get my teeth brushed and go to the bathroom, take a shower, make some coffee, get in the car, go to work, come home, go to the grocery store, hit a meeting, call some people, and all this stuff. And if you got some extra stuff on you, like make sure dad's okay today. And does he need anything? And maybe he'll need a few things out of me. And then this thing also, that didn't even factor into what I just said.
I was going to add that. May I?
This thing adding into, calling for me all the time. Yeah, Go ahead.
Well, you were talking about that when your dad was going through his crisis. You had so many people that cared. They were all reaching out, and you didn't have a chance to get back to everybody.
Nope.
But
it's still there.
But even as you're navigating those normal things, which would be just normal life, then your phone's telling you, sorry, you can't use it right now. You need to update. We're sending you an update you must do right now and interrupt your whole life and do this. Oh, I'm sorry. Your workplace wants you to download a new app if you want to get paid, and you have to do it this way if you want to get your next paycheck. And so I do that, and then as I go on the thing to download, Google tells me, we need your password because for no reason. No reason. I've been on there. I've done plenty of shit. There's no reason they need it again unless I'm buying something. I'm not buying anything. I didn't press buy. It's free. I just want to get on there to look at the app. Nope, we need your password first. Just one of those weird technology where every now and then they're checking to see if it's you. And those little interruptions, those little cuts to your skin day after freaking day. And you're going to tell me that's not going to affect you?
Yep.
Try doing that to your dog for a month. He'll be under the table, shaking like a leaf and going, don't ever take me there again. Please, don't do it.
We got a mutual friend who's gets paid through Venmo a lot, like me, and my self-employment thing, and I'm going to go into that in just a minute too, is just a shift in my universe and getting to see these different angles. But his phone, Venmo said it can't support his phone anymore. He can't. So what's he got to do? He's got to go, what's a phone cost today? A whole lot.
Crazy.
So he's got to run out.
They decided he needed a new phone.
Yeah, they decided he needed a new phone. And he's trying, that's the way, and I have it too, man. That's the way I get paid a lot. I'm changing that starting now. I'm only going to accept the green paper. That's all I'm going to accept. If you're not okay with that, sorry.
I like it because, again, that's a little bit of bucking the system and having a self-awareness that I'm just going to do a different thing and see what happens.
Yep.
I love
it means
that.
You had to go to you call me. I'll tell you about how long I think it's going to take me, and I'll tell you how much cash to get today so that when I come over tomorrow, you'll have it. And then, he gets in his phone and it's all this migration shit and it won't update, it's wanting his passwords and it's wanting, and no, that password ain't right, and it's a whole thing. He's really just trying to get Venmo going, but there's an explosion that goes off in your phone when everything tries to update and all these things are going, who are you? Get this text and type in this number. Here's the second party authorization or whatever it is. And he vented on me pretty good yesterday whenever that blew up on him.
Well, you guys use Discord, and I just read an article today that Discord's testing a new program, and they didn't ask people if they wanted it or warn them it was coming. But Australia and in UK or somewhere, they've been locked out of their Discord. It will not accept their password out of age verification, trying to protect teens from bad language bullshit, whatever it is. Good cause, I guess.
Yeah, right.
But how about some warning that you're going to interrupt my whole day when I'm trying to function? But this is the stuff. This is the stress we're under.
I've been self-employed for 6 years doing my own deal, and I accepted this job back into air quotes corporate America, and it's a good deal, and I'm enjoying it, and it really is an opportunity. It appears that there are no downsides to me accepting this job, except when I go in there and watch these robots work and watch these people who are under that thing, because I'm. It may sound arrogant, may
You're
sound
freelance.
whatever. I'm living on a different plane than most of these people. And you go in there and watch that, and it's a little spooky. It's like I don't want to really interact with the many of them and stuff. And there's a whole culture thing going on in there that kind of bugs me. And that's pretty much what happened when I left, although they, higher power did something. I was beginning to get fed up with that. And I'm getting to see it again. I'm walking back into it, and I'm seeing this culture that I haven't had to witness for 6 years rear back up, and it's super apparent that there is something going on here that is not good for these people that are.
Nor is it good for us as a nation or as human beings, because I listen to some pretty powerful speakers, and he was talking about. They're figured out a way that they're going to automate the workforce to make more money out of us, because robots never have to sleep. Robots never have to go on vacation. They never take maternity leave, and they never bitch and moan.
And they can work 24/7.
They never bitch and moan. So they're going in that direction. But the thing I heard was, what was this thing? Oh, shit. It just went out of my head.
I'll switch it for a second. You'll remember. One of the things that bugs me is these smart homes where everything in your house is plugged into the system, and even, being able to start your car from inside is a great thing. You can do that and you take advantage of it. But the flip side of that is that somebody can also turn your car off.
True. That's true.
And the same thing with my air conditioning and my water, maybe. They want us to put these smart meters on our electric and put these smart meters on our water and all this stuff, which means that somebody can push a button and boom.
And it's invasion of privacy because they know what you're doing all the time.
Yep.
And they're keeping a file because they're just about, it's not conspiracy shit, guys. It's about how to sell you more shit.
Yeah.
That's all it is, man. Let me get in Dan's head so I can get him to open up his wallet and spend more money. But this was the thing. Thank you for helping me remember it. They're lobbying, they're talking in the Senate and Congress now. The way to save Medicare is every single private care visit will be robots now. It will make you more efficient. The robot will get you through faster. The robot won't make mistakes, and we won't have to pay it. And we're going to save tons of money on Medicare and be able to do that. But you'll never get a human doctor to talk to again.
Yeah.
Does anybody want that?
I don't think so.
I want to have a doctor I can talk to. I don't want a robot.
Yep.
The minute I have to go into the movie theater, which is coming real fast, and you already do that. You've been to the movie theater lately? You have to go get your tickets off the screen.
Yep.
There's no fucking person there.
Yep. Taco Bell down the street. You can't order at the counter. Mm-hmm. You got to go through the little kiosk out there, you know. And I know I should probably just say F Taco Bell instead. But yeah, there's just so many of these things that's becoming this automated deal, you know. And you, like I do, I have a thing on my phone that I can open and close, unlock and lock my front door from anywhere. That's kind of cool. But what if somebody decides to lock that thing on me and I can't get in my own
Or
home?
they hack it,
yep.
And then they get in your house.
Get in my house. Same thing with garage door openers and just all this stuff that's becoming like
and,
that.
You know, maybe
and self-driving cars.
No, exactly.
Have you heard of this little thing I read from my buddy Chris Williamson that does the Modern Wisdom podcast? They are smart and they won't hit you, and we know it. So we will walk out in front of a self-driven car because they're like marked in Austin, Texas, and you can tell what it is, and you know you can cross the road because it's got sensors in it and it will stop. Well, it takes you longer to get someplace in that car because people are not respecting the cars moving around in the road. Because I won't step out in front of you because I don't know what you will do, right? I know I have a little bit of trust that maybe you won't hit me on purpose, but I don't know if you're looking at your telephone or if you're whatever, but it's taken like twice as long to get somewhere in self-driven cars because nobody respects them.
You just hit on the kernel of why this is going to blow up. It's called the law of unintended consequences, right? And every new development that's going to be a huge leap ahead, they're not thinking this shit through, guys. They are not. They're rushing into it because why? And there's good reasons for this too. I'll argue the devil's side.
Sure.
China. We got to get ahead of China on AI. If we don't, we're screwed because they're going to own us and we can't have that. So I get the race, but without any discussion of morality or our human soul or what's the cost.
Yeah, it is spooky, and I don't know. I just, it does feel a lot like we're racing to some type of end. And I don't mean that the world's going to end, but like the world as we know it is changing and
too fast.
There's a path where we're on.
It's changing too fast.
Yeah, I read one of the best books I've ever read in my life was titled "Unintended Consequences," and it was probably 30 years ago, and it was a great big book. And there were peaks of this kind of stuff in it, but it was all about this ball rolling downhill that you can't stop, and you don't know who's going to get scooped up in it, who's going to get run over by it, and the various things that humanity is doing to itself that, and on the surface it all looks like really good stuff. Like AI, that's cool. You can get answers, you can get papers written, you can learn, you can get your college degree, you can, but yeah, what
you
is
can
that
do
going
fake
to be?
nudes of your
Fake
friends
news,
and all
yep.
that stuff. But I so scared. We said spooky. To me, it's the kids. The kids don't have a choice.
No, they don't.
They're growing up thinking this is normal. Mm-hmm. And unless you have a really strong adult, but they're doing the best they can, God bless all parents out there. You're stressed out, you're tired, you're working 2 jobs to keep your head above water, and you don't have time to teach your kid about meditation or how to keep your sense of self, how to protect your soul. So let's shift the conversation to the positive one more time on the tools. Is it not true, Dan, that every person you've seen do the 12 steps has reclaimed a part of themselves that seemed to have been lost before, and now they're changing their life to align more with that true self and not being as controlled or buffeted by the forces outside of them anymore?
Absolutely, that's true, And the guys and the gals that do all the steps and then actually practice these principles in our lives downstream, for certain. But even people who don't get it all done. And this has been the thing that's been on me and some of my guys' mind lately, is that everybody loves to get to 5, 6, and 7. But when it comes to 8 and 9, man, they put the brakes on. But they're still better than they were. They still are better than they were and more awake. But yeah, if you'll do all these, it's an automatic, man. I will stand up a stable of men behind me and around me that will, frankly, you'll think we're lying when we tell our stories of where we came from and what's happening in our lives today. You won't believe it. You'll think we're making shit up. It's miraculous, and you do this work and you practice this stuff. Like I said, I live on a different plane than most of the rest of the universe, and I'm okay there. I like it here.
So for everybody that's, I'm sorry, but for everybody's in the regular world and they don't, know what we're talking about, never, and we'd like them to go to a meeting, but it's more likely they're probably never going to do that. I would say go watch the movie The Matrix one more time with an open mind, from a perspective of, what if this isn't fiction? What if this is actually the way it is, that in a way,
at some level,
in a way, we're all living in a matrix of fabricated reality.
They're not those little embryos hanging up in the tower.
No, screw that
and
shit.
All that. But yeah, there is some kind of
a bubble, if you will. Now, for instance, a kid living on a beach with a family living off the land on a tropical island, he's in his own bubble. That's his reality. But that doesn't make it the true reality for everybody. But we live in this reality, in this country particularly, thinking this is the way it is. This is what it is. People will lose their minds over stuff thinking that this is the way it is. And I would present to you that as Neo began to see the other side of the Matrix, he had a very famous line that he uttered at one point. He went, "Whoa." And he saw the cat glitching in the mirror, whatever. He's like, "Well, did you all see that?" You have to awaken. That's the spirit. That's what I would like you to take from this podcast. You've got to fucking pull your head out of your ass and start looking around, man. Am I making this choice on my own? Start watching podcasts about how we're being controlled by technology and the corporate interests. I just saw a great one the other day. I may have Dan put it in the show notes. But this woman, she's a new teacher about processed foods and the crap we're eating, and she's great. She's great. She does her research, and she gives a whole thing that I sent to Dan that I know he hasn't watched yet about the drive-through technology and how every piece of your car is being controlled in your mind about how they're going to get you to spend more money. I mean, it's phenomenally deep, and that's one little area. You just pull in and think, I'm just going to get a sandwich. No. They're getting in their matrix, and they're like programming you, go get this. And you think you're making those choices. And each of us do. That damn ego is so strong, they'll fight me in my group saying, nobody programs me. I make my own decisions. Alcohol doesn't control me. I control it. I should be able to stop. No, bro. No. Control a case of diarrhea if you think you control your alcoholism. Good luck, pal. I'm just not going to have diarrhea. I'm just not. Good luck. There's so much more. And until you awaken, you're not going to challenge your choices. You're not going to challenge. So even these little choices that me and Dan make, my phone is on silent all day long, except if the package is coming for an emergency product. All day and night, it's on silent, period.
My phone does not get to make noise.
I won't let it. That's power. When you take that back, that is your power. I'm deciding, not it.
This is another thing that made me think about. Like, I know a lot of guys that have 2 telephones. They got a work phone.
It's a burner phone. And
their personal phone. Yeah. And I can understand there's a little bit of keeping that boundary in between the two. I get that a little bit.
Okay.
But, they're talking to me on like Polo, and this other phone is beeping and blowing and hollering for them. And it's not unusual because that other phone is more important than the one they're talking to me on, their personal one. So they'll go, oh, hang on, I got to check this. And they grab their, they stop their Polo and they grab their other phone, and then they're gone for a minute. I never know it because it's seamless by the time I look at it. But to have 2 phones, and it's interesting to watch the power that other phone has on them. It's not a matter of like, screw it, let me silence that phone or something. That's never the answer. The answer is, I got to get that.
And the way it consumes you and absorbs you in, and we're all guilty. I'm not picking on you or anybody else with this, but right before our podcast, Dan was looking at something on his phone that he was consumed with, and I was talking to him, and I said, "Are you listening to me?" He goes, "I'm listening." And I knew you were listening. I knew you were hearing me, but you weren't here, man. You were really into whatever the hell you were looking at on your. And again, that's just what it's doing to us.
It is.
It's just
Sucks
what it's
you
doing
in.
to
It's
us.
powerful.
So awareness, guys, awareness. Wake up, get some tools, get some supports, find other people that are like-minded, and you can change the world. That is literally what we do every day in our program. When we help another guy to awaken, you are changing the world for their kids, for their kids' kids. Isn't that not true, Dan? That you have seen the men you help be fathers to your children that all of us wish we could have that father.
Sometimes I think that's my mission, that I'm here to help these other men be better fathers. It feels like that, and I get to witness it.
And that is changing the world. You've changed that child's destiny. That's powerful, man.
Yeah.
So please join us. Find an AANA open group. You have to look for open ones. Closed ones are just for addicts and alcoholics. It'll say O or C when you're looking them up on the internet. And Al-Anon is a great place to start. Overeaters Anonymous, go check that out. But you can go to a Zoom meeting and just listen. Or, even better, listen to some speakers on YouTube. The AA speakers have great stories about how I was worthless and now I'm changing the world by speaking all over the world. We had people in our inner circle, one of which, they went to Russia to bring the steps to Russia in the 90s, man. I mean, that's a changing the world. Russia, having AA in the steps? Yeah, man, they do. Believe it or not, even under Putin. Isn't that crazy? So, awakenings, man. It's dangerous. People do not want you awake. You'll stop buying their products. All right. Well, thank you for joining us with that. I know it's a little bit deeper rabbit hole than we normally go down, but the hell with it. I just said, fuck it. Let's talk about real shit. And I would love to hear your feedback on it. Don't beat us up too bad, but give us your feedback about any thoughts and about anything you're pondering on, about your meaning and your purpose and what's this life all about. We would love to hear from you. That is at IM12, the word recovery at gmail.com. That's IM12, the word recovery at gmail.com. And we will especially answer your questions, which we're going to do next. So send us any questions you have about any of this stuff. All right, this is our question portion of the program. We have 2 great questions today, and we would love to have some more from you. So if you have a life situation, a circumstance, a dilemma, an issue, problem of any kind, send it to us. Even if it's what to name your dog, we will try to answer it. I would love to have that question, to ask us, what would you name your turtle? We'll come up with something, and we'll try to give you some support here. So send them to im12recovery@gmail.com. All righty, that's not I'm 12, that's IM12. That's an inside joke here. All right, we're going to get into this here. Okay, what do you do when the people around you will not change? However, you know how much they would benefit from doing the steps. All right, well, we could just use that in the general. What do you do for any of y'all out there that have a friend, a family member that you watch going through it over and over and over again, and they won't do anything different, right? They're stuck. They won't go to therapy. They won't go to a group. They won't even read a book. Even if you buy them a book, you say, did you read the book? No, I'm not. They're just not ready for change. So it's really difficult to navigate this needle between I care and I want to do something to help, but I also don't want to push them and have them turn against me because nobody likes to be pushed. Be very careful when you're carrying any kind of message to anybody that you can push them away. This is something our founder discovered very early on when he went to the Bowery of New York and started preaching, quote unquote, at the drunks, and they were universally repelled. You know what that looks like? Have you ever had one magnet and another magnet, and you try to put them together, and the other one goes, bzzz. That's Bill in the Bowery. Bzzz, here comes Bill. Oh, they're running away. So, I think there's 2 things that our program teaches us that are the best guides. A message of love, and keep it on yourself. Use I statements. I repeat, a message of love and support, and keep it on yourself. There's many group members I watch who will come at another person with this you stuff. You need to do this, and you need to read this book, and you would really get a lot of benefit. The minute you come at me as a normal human being with an ego, but especially an addict, alcoholic, and you're saying you, I'm being preached at, and I feel like the probation officer is trying to corner me into doing something I don't want to do, and I'm going to just rebel for the sake of rebelling. I'm not going to let anybody control me. I'm just not. You're not going to tell me what to do. However, someone's coming at me saying, well, Hey Dan, man, I've been listening to you a long time, bro, and I've been hearing all the things you're going through, and it breaks my heart, dude. Seriously, I am torn up, and sometimes I've even lost some sleep over thinking about what you're going through, and because I'm your friend, I'm going through it with you, like we're going through it together. So I want you to know that I care. I mean, I give a fuck. And real friends who give a fuck versus friends who are just fly by night. Fly by nights friends just say, whatever, dude, that's your problem. I'll just move on. Won't let it bother me. But real friends will speak up and say, hey, man, I just have some concerns. And I wish we could figure something out together where, we could do something different and try some new tools. And you're inviting them to sort of join the conversation. And then you shift. After you say, hey, we could do this together. Then you shift into that I talk. And you say, because I went to therapy about 2 years ago, and I had this thing, I told you to walk me through it. And it got a lot better because I got somebody else's opinion. And I got a little perspective I couldn't get by myself. So, is that something you would be willing to consider? I mean, if not, it's cool, bro. But I would tell you, it really helped me. And then when they resist, Bill has a brilliant line in the Working with Others chapter. He says, agree with them. There's a guy in there he's working with that doesn't think he needs to do the steps, or he doesn't like the God stuff, or he doesn't want to do a 4-step, whatever the angle is. And Bill says, you know what? Okay, you're probably right. That's cool. You get to choose yourself. He says, however, and he says to emphasize this point, I doubt I would have made any progress and I wouldn't have stopped drinking if I hadn't done an inventory. Keep it on yourself. So you let them have their thing, you let them have their stand, but then you leave them with that little doubt of, however, I doubt I'd be sober today if I hadn't gotten a sponsor. I doubt very much that I'd be alive today. I would be in my basement drinking myself to death if I'm still alive. So you leave them with that little bit of doubt, and then you leave them alone. You got to live in space to ponder and dwell on it, But logging heads with them or trying to beat them into change, it just never works. But, you lead a horse to water. You can't make them drink, but you can make them eat a lot of potato chips, or you feed them a lot of potato chips. And that's our mantra in therapy. And I do that every day in my group. I'm telling them how great it is. And I teach them about my guys. And I take them to the meetings, and they see how great these guys' their lives are. And then I have them come to aftercare, and these guys are preaching. And in fact, my people go, I'm tired of hearing this preaching stuff. It sounds like Jesus, rah, rah. And I'm like, I don't care. I'm feeding you potato chips, man. I'm feeding you potato chips. And one of my guys, one of the fiercest, strongest, fuck you people I've met in a while, has turned the corner now and has a freaking sponsor and is actually doing the tools, and told me just recently and said, I'm actually kind of feeling optimistic and excited about this. I'm like, oh my God. It only took us beating on that wall for 20 years to get you there. But, they got to have their process. So what do you think, Dan? What do you do when the people around you won't change? Like, seriously, they just won't do it. But you know how much they would benefit from either change or the steps or therapy or whatever, the fill in the blank.
I hope to someday be able to hold a candle to the answers you give to these questions, Christopher. Because I struggle to find any place like to insert. Every once in a while, I'll have something where I can maybe insert something here and there. But that was a beautiful way to do it. And you kind of learn again. You folks hear me say this over and over again. I certainly didn't have these tools in the beginning, but you learn this little horse to water trick. This little angle.
You did that just the other night. You brought the guy to the meeting.
Yeah.
Tell him.
But what I'm getting ready to say is, I won't finish that sentence. Is there's this little ninja magic that where you can try to make these people, when you talk about yourself and not you should them and all that kind of stuff. When you talk about yourself, you kind of trick them into thinking it's their idea to do it.
That is the best, dude.
And
that is the best.
And that's what you just did, by the way. You did that. That's what that's putting the ball in their court. You never told a dude what to do at all, but you let a lot of space for him to go, you know what? Maybe I should, and make it be his idea. And allow that room, because nobody wants to be told what to do. There was that guy the other day, and he called me up and he was wanting help, and I asked him if he'd ever been around recovery, and this guy is teaching breath work at his recovery house.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's
and he's got some angles in his repertoire where he is like giving back to there's a community. And what's happened is these companies, and I don't know how healthy this is overall, but if it's helping people get sober, okay. But they buy up these like empty houses on a block, and they fill them up with recovery dudes and charge them a little bit of rent. And set forth some discipline in their lives and some rules and some stuff. They got to be at these meetings and encourage them to bring anything to the table. And this guy's doing that. But, I have tools where I can say, hey, man, I can pick you up. I will. I don't have any wheels. I can't get over. Well, I'll pick you up. Mm-hmm. And this wonderful thing that you go, man, I know you're thinking I'm blowing smoke. But when you come to this meeting, you're going to experience something different than what you've experienced in other meetings. You're going to. We have that golden ticket there. And time after time after time after time, and I can hear them going, yeah, although they're not saying it, but I can feel that energy,
Every day of my life.
Yeah. And then that drive home, man, you aren't kidding. There really is something going on in there. There's something that's, man, I don't know how I can work it out to where I can get to that every week. And I said, well, at the very least, you can get on Zoom. And I said, and I got time too, man. You can, and the Discord, join the Discord. What'd he do that night after the meeting? There he was in the Discord saying hi to people. And then we talked, I don't know if it was this episode or last one, but the next day he was in there in the Discord sharing some real cool stuff that happened in his life as a result of what he did last night. And, I don't know, just this gift you've given me to where I can impress on these men some hope to make them, think it's their idea that they're doing what they're doing and come in and give this thing a try. And then I get lucky quite often that they walk it out with me. And then I get to see them getting their RN degrees, and I get to see them getting really good jobs, and I get to see them raise their children, and their relationships get better with everybody around them. And that magic power that you've given me, man, it's so cool. But how do you get their foot in the door, right? That's what that question was. How do you get them moving my direction? Mm-hmm. That old thing where I go, come on, follow me. Just come on. Come on.
So there's that method with the mule, and then there's the board to the head method with the mule. And in the old days, that's what they would do. If a mule was not minding, they would hit him once, and the mule would be like, and it would move, So recently, I had a guy leave a message on my business phone that I know is still drinking himself to death in his basement. And it was one of those bullshit messages. It wasn't a message like I need help or I'm willing to come in, which would be great. I'd be like, cool, let's do it. I'll help you. But, they just won't go to the program. They won't do the steps. They just fought that from day one. And I was like, well, it's your choice, man. There's one way to go, and that's die.
It's another guy we know.
Yeah. And literally his wife won't let him upstairs. This guy had a very extremely crazy successful money-making career and lives in a mansion that he owns. It's his mansion. It's in his name. And he's not allowed to come upstairs. He just sits in the basement and drinks. Mm-hmm. And with all of his awards, he has a whole wall of awards for his business achievements. And I'm like, God, dude, what the hell are you doing? So anyway, he leaves this bullshit message about, well, your name came up for some reason on my phone. And I just thought I'd give you a call, see what's going on. So give me a call, buddy. And I was like, you know what? No. I pondered on it. I did. I spent time on what's the right thing? Obviously, my first impulse, I got called. I'm a social worker. I'm a counselor. And so I care. And I'm like, is that the best move, though? And I'm like, you know what? Maybe that son of a bitch needs to sit in silence for a second without me jumping. And him thinking, he didn't answer my damn call. Because at least if I got him angry, I'm still under his skin a little bit, and he's got to think about it a bit. And maybe he'll just pop into aftercare just so he can say, well, I called you the other day. I never heard from you because, we always got to be right. Yeah. And there's different tactics you can use. But, like we said earlier about pulling back and doing nothing, sometimes just backing off and letting it be, hey, he's not coming around and talking to me and making me want to go anymore. What's going on? I don't know.
Yep.
There's no one right way, but I do like that message of love and support, and this is what happened to me. And then just let it lie. Let the seed germinate. All right, second question for today. And we've had this one kind of before, but I'm going to put a different spin on it, and it's been a while since we've talked about it. Is there a difference, Dan the man, between boredom and peace of mind? In other words, those moments when it's quiet and nothing is happening. What's the difference? Is there a difference between boredom and peace of mind? So one of the most common responses you're going to hear from an addict in early recovery is, I'm bored. And I love the story that this dude took that to his sponsor one night. His sponsor looked at him right there and he says, that's because you're boring, bro. And he's like, hey, that didn't feel good. And he says, no, I'm trying to teach you something. It's because we take away the alcohol and the drugs. That's all there is to your life. How sad is that? You have no hobbies, no activities, no interests, no friend groups, no nothing. But we take this away and there's nothing going on. You know, that's the opposite of addicts saying, I got a lot going on in recovery, Dan. Yeah. It's like, I'm bored. There's nothing going on. So it's both of those. But we as addicts especially, but I think in our culture, since this is on the topic we're talking about your soul today, we live in a stimulus-heavy culture. We have stimuli at every turn, okay? Bright lights from signs flashing at you when you're driving, everything on your phone coming at you, everything from the TV coming out at you. You know, even it's been said that McDonald's, which I'm sure they do, will promote their smell of their greasy fries out into the park or into the traffic. When you're at the stoplight, they have a fan to feed it out there so it comes up your air conditioning system. And you go, yeah, I think I'll stop and get some fries. These are stimuli. And then when we don't have that, we're bored. And it's like, no, it's called peace. It's called the way life is supposed to be, especially as it was 100 years ago when you're living on a farm, as most people were, farming rural land back in the day 100 years ago. And they had downtime where it's just like, man, you know what? Life's good. I'm just going to sit here and chill for a bit. Now, this last week, if you want to look it up on YouTube, they're pretty good about posting their stories. CBS Sunday Morning ran a story on a huge movement that's going on among retirees living abroad. They've decided to opt out of American culture, and they're going where it's quiet. And this one couple was in Malta. And they were like, I didn't even know, I had to look it up on a map, she said. I didn't even know where it was, but we came here and we fell in love because we can live a lot cheaper, so we have a better quality of life. It's peaceful, and the people are cool, and I don't feel the stressors. We don't have a car. There's no need for a car. Can you imagine that? No need for a car, folks. They just walk and go to the market. It sounds like a great freaking life. And then the interviewer, being pretty sharp, asked the standard question that most people have. Well, what do you do about health care and stuff? And they said, nothing, man. It's like free here. And it's great care. We had serious problems the past few years. We got great care, better in the States. And she said, would you go back to American health care? They said, never. Never, folks. This illusion of our freedom and how much great care we're having in this country. So, again, that's just being open that, peace is a great commodity, and we don't value it. We immediately think I got to do something. Now, my friend Dan does have something to say about this, because I work with my friend Dan on not being such a busy doing something all the time, and he has a phrase about addiction and busyness, I'll let him say, but, and also about sleeping in late sometimes and not worrying about he's wasting his whole day. But it's programming, man. So I'll give the microphone to you, Dan. What do you think?
It come from Bob Earls, where I got it. It is, busyness is my drug of choice in recovery. And I get that now, and I'll look at that, because if I just stay busy, I don't have to think about me. I don't have to contemplate me and what I'm doing right or wrong if I just stay busy. And I've gotten a lot better at that. I'm still a busybody. There's a piece of me that I don't know if it's, sometimes I just say, well, it's just part of my DNA, but I can rest today. I can go sit in that chair. I like to go down to Fargo and sit in the recliner and just sit in the quiet. I'm missing that right now. I realized it today. Today on this taping is April the 17th. You're not supposed to do that on podcast, but I'm going to do it anyway. On January the 19th, 3 months ago, Dad had that thing happen. I haven't spent the night at the cabin since.
Wow,
because it's a long time for me, and I feel it. I feel it in my bones that I need that battery charger down there and go sit still in there. And today, one thing I have been doing over the last 3 months is I've just been going up there and sitting by Dad because he wanted somebody by him. And I just sit there. And sometimes he's got a ball game on. Sometimes the TV's off. Sometimes he's talking. Sometimes he ain't. And just be in stillness for a little bit. And I have enjoyed that, just to be sitting. Boredom and peace of mind. I think it's perception. You know, how are you perceiving this moment? Is this boredom? Because I'm never bored. I can't think of the last time I've been bored.
It's another gift of recovery, is that you have so many options and so many things to do. Travis told us today that he's got 20 invitations to different Easter events, and he doesn't know which one to go to this weekend. That's the beauty of recovery, is being that connected, you know?
Yep, and I can choose to check out on, you know, when I want to. And by that I mean, you know, choose stillness, and I make sure that I get a little stillness in every one of my days, whether if it's a nap,
I do.
Straight up purposeful meditation, breathing. I take some time every single day to make sure there's some stillness in my day.
And
I think this program asks me to do that.
It also qualifies for stillness to either A, take a nap, but B, if you're doing meditation. I'm in the city, so I would hear traffic noise outside and kids walking past after school. So I put on my white noise. And I've got a beautiful white noise off YouTube, Spotify. If anybody wants to write me and ask me what it is, it's for tinnitus. It's white noise for tinnitus, and it's really just in the zone of. To me, it replicates being in the middle of you're in a hut, and you're surrounded by a tropical rainstorm without thunder, but the rain is enveloping you with that wave of sound, like. And it really takes you to a place where you can let go easy. But that's my quiet time. That's my, you know, time to just pull away from the world.
One of my favorite sounds is being down there at the cabin with that rain hitting on that metal roof, man. There's some enveloping kind of serenity that wraps around me.
It's like hiding out. You're safe. I have many rain sound things on my playlist, and it is like this moment of just like, because what happens in history, when the rain comes, life stops, right? You know, we didn't have this time, you know, we're 24/7 culture today. But if the vendors were out selling their wares, if the rain comes out, they're fucking covering their wares and they're closing down for a little while.
Yep.
And then the storm passes, they come back out.
Yep.
I miss that. Do you remember that when you were a kid? You used to play. And then there'd be a rainstorm and you're like, oh shit, we gotta sit under the porch. And we sometimes just sit there and watch the rain and you wait for it to pass. And then you go play some more. We've lost all that contact with nature, man.
Yep.
And I think you need that. I think I would highly recommend you go as soon as possible.
Yep, I do. I am considering that maybe even this weekend.
So the question was, is there a difference? Obviously. Yes. Perception being the main thing, right? Okay. So just try it. For everybody out there, do try to find a little bit more quiet time in your life. And one of the things I coach my patients on all the time is you should be teaching your children about that.
Yeah.
Please teach your children how to put down their tablets once in a while and just either A, have a family dinner. That's a good start. And they'll hate it, but they'll thank you later. Because when you die, or you're on your deathbed, they'll say, Dad, I remember those family dinners, and I didn't want to do it, but it was great. You know, it's crazy how that works out that way. But please, if somebody had taught me meditation as a child growing up, my whole path on this earth would be different. And I don't say that lightly. I literally would have had a center and a control to my reactions and my emotions that I did not have. I was a pinball in a pinball machine, man. Growing up in a dysfunctional family, you're reacting. Dad's drunk. There's a crisis. They're yelling at each other. We're moving. What's going on? Oh my God, I gotta go to a different school. It's fucking chaos all the time. And you get trained on that. That's your matrix. But meditation and taking that control back and having your center where you don't have to react. I don't have to react. I know you're upset, but I'm just listening to you. I don't have to react. It's crazy how powerful that is. Am I right, Dan?
Yep. You know, I don't know where it come from, but one of my guys says they've instituted a weekly board game night with their family.
That's fucking awesome.
You know,
I like
not
that.
Electronic, nothing but board game. I think it's super cool. It really touched me that they're doing that.
Me and Jamie in our recovery, after the meeting on Tuesday nights and other nights when we didn't have to get up early the next day, we would watch David Letterman. We'd have David Letterman on the TV, not really watching it, and we would lay on his rug, on his ground, on the carpet, and play Sorry. Yeah. And that is I have it, by the way. I have a board. I have Sorry at home. I bought one a while back at some garage sale or something because I saw it and I said, oh my God, I gotta get it. It's a great game for addicts and alcoholics because you're constantly landing on each other. You think you're winning. You're like, I'm sorry. And you're like, oh, you son of a bitch. And you got to go all the way back to the start with your guy. It's fun, dude. But I don't think you can replicate that kind of fun in a video game. I just don't think you can. It's not the same.
No, it's different. Yeah, definitely.
So there you go. That's the best we can do on that one. But again, we want to hear from you. So please send us all your questions, comments, concerns, jokes. You got any jokes? Anybody out there got any jokes? We are a little dry hearing from people. If you made it to this point in the podcast, why don't you reach out? Let us know you're out there. Again, I am one too, recovery@gmail.com, or the comments below. It just helps us to carry this message to more people. So please pass this video on to somebody if you think it could help them. Maybe not this one because they're a little bit heavier in there. They maybe go, what's this guy's problem? He sounds a little down about this shit. I am kind of. But I took us to a deeper level discussion, and maybe you can start that with your friends. See if that works out. All right, we'd like to close with the serenity prayer, as we do after every podcast. So, Dan, if you would like to join me, God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Just for today. Keep coming back. It works if you work it. You die if you don't. Keep coming back. We want to see you next time. We love you, and peace out.